for the office.
I'll give it a try.
It must be the seat.
Maybe.
Who was that, Weldon?
Maybe.
Weldon said he'll give it a shot.
Okay, good.
Somebody's got to do it, so I might as well give it a whirl.
Just say amen.
That's it. I should be short.
Keep us all safe.
It'll be short.
We ready?
Yeah, just make it close to you. I don't know which one works, that one or the other one.
This one. All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the St. Tammany Parish Planning Commission meeting of July the 13th. Public comments regarding items on the agenda may be submitted during the meeting by calling into an audio bridge conference call. The phone number and meeting ID and password will be posted to the parish website at this time. It should have been 24 hours ago. We're going to ask that everyone be sure and keep their mask on unless you're speaking, and you can drop it down like I've dropped mine down, and hopefully you're able to understand me and hear me fine. Please silence all phones and electronic devices. Any appeals on, if you disagree with any decision this commission makes, you have the right to appeal it to the council. Speaker cards are on the railing to my right. You can fill one out if you're going to speak on a particular item. Public speaking is 10 minutes each side and 5 minutes for rebuttal. And after your case is heard, please exit the building so that we can possibly bring some other people in. Please rise for the invocation by Commissioner Crawford and the pledge by myself.
Dear Lord, we thank you for everyone here today. Thank you for this day and for all of our many blessings. We ask you to please be with all of the people here in this room, with the public, with the petitioners, and with the commissioners on the bench here. Please help us to do the best we can and to do the work for the parish. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Will you please call the roll? You gotta get confused.
Thanks.
All right, Mr. Seeger? Mr. Ress?
Here.
Ms. McGinnis? Here. Mr. Richard?
Here.
Mr. Doherty?
Here.
Mr. Barcelona?
Here.
Mr. Fitzmaurice?
Here.
Mr. Crawford?
Here.
Mr. Drum?
Here.
Mr. Randolph? We have a quorum.
Thank you. We had 3 sets of minutes in your packet. Hopefully you had an opportunity to look over them. If there's any corrections, please let me know so that we can make the corrections. Otherwise, I'm looking for a motion to approve.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Fitzmaurice to approve, second by Commissioner Crawford. Please vote.
Point of clarification, is that for all minutes?
Mm,
Or do we need to do it individually?
Yes, all minutes,
All minutes.
all 3 of them.
All 3?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Seeger? Mr. Ress?
Yes.
Ms. McGinnis? Yes. Mr. Fitzmaurice?
Yes.
Mr. Crawford?
Yes.
Mr. Drum?
Yes.
Mr. Randolph? Not here. Mr. Barcelona?
Yes.
Mr. Richard?
Yes.
Mr. Doherty?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Excellent.
Public hearings, request for postponement. Staff, do we have any postponements?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. On page number 3, under the petitions, We have PET 2020-001, PET 2020-002, and PET 2020-003. And Mr. Paul Marone is here if the commission has any question.
Okay, Mr. Morone?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman Paul Marone. You'll recall that these were cases that were handled by my law partner, Mr. Shane, and you'll also recall at the last
Paul,
meeting.
I'm not sure the mic's picking up. Is it on?
Not yet.
Podium, it shows that it's on.
Thank you. Is that better?
Yes.
Okay. As you'll recall, these cases were handled by Mr. Shane, and at the end of the last meeting, Carlin was going to undertake some research on the parish's behalf. He was going to undertake some research on his behalf. Neither have been able to complete that research under the circumstances. Carlin's not here tonight, and Mr. Shane is not here tonight, or able to be here tonight. So that's the reason for the requested table, so that there'll be more time to complete that research, hopefully by your next meeting.
Okay, thank you. I know we've got several requests to speak, or they were against this, so I will go ahead and name the people that turned in. One is Kyle Crusta. Another one, Kyle Crusta, on, this first one was on 001, the second one's on 002, and the third one here is on 003, Kyle Crusta. And this is Anthony J. Garciato. And he doesn't have the case, but he's got 50-foot lots on Partridge. So that is the same ones. And then we have one from Betsy Pitts on 001, 2, and 3. Just, so that you're aware, I'm going to be looking for a motion to postpone, since we've got folks out that are ill right now. And we'll go from there. I want to read these into the record just for record keeping. PET 2020-001, request to build on a buildable substandard lot of record pursuant to Section 125-84 continuous lot rule of Chapter 125, subdivision regulations located on the east side of Partridge Street, south of Dove Park Road, being Lot 16, Square 1, Dove Park subdivision, Covington, Ward 4, District 5. The petitioner owners DS LD Homes LLC. Parish Council District Representative is Reichert Toledano. And the request is from Mr. Marone on behalf of DS LD Homes. I'll accept a motion to postpone this one until our next meeting.
So moved. I'll make a motion to postpone the next meeting.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and okay, Commissioner Crawford made the motion and Commissioner Drum seconded. Please vote.
Mr. Seeger? Mr. Ress?
Yes.
Ms. McGinnis? Yes. Mr. Fitzmaurice?
Yes.
Mr. Crawford?
Yes.
Mr. Drum?
Yes.
Mr. Barcelona?
Yes.
Mr. Richard?
Yes.
Mr. Doherty?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. The next one is PET 2020-002, request request to build on a buildable substandard lot of record pursuant to Section 125-84, continuous lot rule of Chapter 125 subdivision regulations located on the west side of Partridge Street, south of Dove Park Road, being Lot 38, Square 2, Dove Park subdivision, Covington, Ward 4, District 5. Petitioner owner is DSLD Homes LLC, and Parish Council District Representatives Honorable Reichert Toledano. And again, Mr. Morone is requesting this to be postponed. I'll accept the motion.
Make a motion to postpone.
Motion by Commissioner Fitzmaurice to postpone, second by Commissioner Drum. Please vote.
Mr. Russ?
Yes.
Ms. McGinnis?
Yes.
Mr. Fitzmaurice?
Yes.
Mr. Crawford?
Yes.
Mr. Drum?
Yes.
Mr. Randolph? Not here. Mr. Barcelona?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you.
Richard Doty, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, the next one is PET 2020-03, request to build on a buildable substandard lot of record pursuant to section 125-84, contiguous lot rule of chapter 125, subdivision regulations located on the west side of Partridge Street, south of Dove Park Road, being lot 39, square 2, Dove Park subdivision, Covington, Louisiana, Ward 4, District 5. Petitioner owner is DSLD Homes LLC. Council representatives Honorable Reichert Toledano, and Mr. Morone is requesting on behalf of DSLD Homes to postpone. I need a motion.
Make a motion to postpone.
Motion by Commissioner Fitzmaurice to postpone, second by Commissioner Drum. Please vote.
Mr. Russ?
Yes.
Ms. McGinnis?
Yes.
Mr. Fitzmaurice?
Yes.
Mr. Crawford?
Yes.
Mr. Drum?
Yes.
Mr. Barcelona?
Yes.
Mr. Richard?
Yes.
Mr. Doherty?
Yes,
Motion carried.
thank you. All right, entering parish right-of-way servitudes, easements, in Tammany Trace. Request to enter the parish right-of-way of H Street for the purpose of constructing a roadway and drainage improvements. The debtor's DMM Construction LLC, Mr. Michael Martin. Parish Council District Representative is Honorable David Fitzgerald. General location, the property located on the north of Crestwood Boulevard, east of US Highway 190, Ward 3, District 2. This was postponed at the rescheduled special meeting of June 9th. Is Mr. Michael Martin here? Okay, Mr. Morone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Paul Morone again, this time on behalf of Mr. Martin and DMM Construction LLC. Mr. Martin had received the authority and permission to enter into this right-of-way for the purpose of constructing the roadway to get to squares 134 and 135. Unfortunately, the passage of time resulted in that approval expiring. So we're back asking for the same approval that was granted once before so that he can construct out H Street. You may recall last week I appeared before you on the zoning of squares 134 and 135. And this is the continuation of that same project. This will be our access road off of Crestwood Boulevard. So we would respectfully request your approval of our request to enter the right-of-way for the purpose of constructing the roadway and drainage improvements for accessing Mr. Martin's property.
Thank you, Mr. Morone. Anyone in the audience wish to speak for or against on this item? I'll close it to the public and bring it back to the commission. We need a motion to go
Make a
forward.
motion to approve.
Motion by
Second.
Commissioner Fitzmaurice to approve, second by Commissioner Crawford. Any further discussion? Please vote.
Mr. Russ?
Yes.
Ms. McGinnis?
Yes.
Mr. Fitzmaurice?
Yes.
Mr. Crawford?
Yes.
Mr. Drum?
Yes.
Mr. Randolph? Sorry. Barcelona?
Yes.
Mr. Richard?
Yes.
Mr. Doherty?
Yes,
Motion carried.
thank you. Next item, entering parish right-of-way, request to enter the parish right-of-way of 8th Avenue for the purpose of performing roadway, drainage, and sewer water improvements. The debtor is JSB Three Rivers LLC. Mr. John Bowers III, Parish Council District Representatives, Honorable Riker Toledano. General location of the property is located west of Echo Street, north of Three Rivers Road, west of US Highway 190, Covington, Ward 3, District 5. Mr. Bowers in the audience. Good evening.
Hey, I'm Darrell Facel with Arrow Engineering, 237 Natchez Trace in Covington, and I'm here representing the owner. And as you have in your packet, the letter says that we are making this request for adding a secondary access to a development that will have the main entrance on Three Rivers Road. And we met with staff, and this is one of the recommendations for this project. And you also have a letter from Chris Tissue agreeing with this request.
Thank you. Staff, do you have any comments?
No, sir.
Okay. Anyone else in the audience wish to speak for or against on this item? I'll close it to the public and bring it back to the commission.
I make a motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Fitzmaurice to approve.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Crawford. Any further discussion? Nell?
I'm sorry, I don't recall your name, representing the applicant. Come back.
Darrell?
I'm curious, once traffic hits Echo, how do they get out to 190? How will this benefit the Three Rivers Road traffic?
It won't benefit Three Rivers Road traffic.
It's going to take them back to Three Rivers just from a separate
Right,
approach.
and it's, in actuality, the exit won't be used, I would think, very much by most of the development. It's really a secondary access for emergency purposes, ambulances, fire engines, and things like that. It's probably going to end up being the most traffic.
Okay. Oh, just out of curiosity, one other question. Three Rivers Road is really a scenic drive. It's a lot of timber still left there. And I see you have the 35-foot buffer. Are the trees going to be left? It says landscape buffer on the plan.
Right, yeah, landscape, yeah, all the existing trees will be left. in
You
that
know
35.
that to be true?
Yeah, all the significant trees especially, but now that, well, I won't get into that.
Well, it'd be a great screen, just to leave the shrubs, the trees as is.
Yeah, we treat in most of the projects now, we treat the landscape buffer like a no-cut buffer. That's just
Okay,
that's
thank
what
you.
Okay. Any of the commissioners have any other questions? We have a motion and a second. Please vote.
Mr. Rest?
Yes.
Ms. McGinnis?
Yes.
Mr. Fitzmaurice?
Yes.
Mr. Crawford?
Yes.
Mr. Drum?
Yes.
Mr. Barcelona?
Yes.
Mr. Richard?
Yes.
Mr. Doherty?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. All right, revocation review. REV 20-06-005. The revocation of an unopened portion of 7th Avenue East as delineated on the Town of Alexisville subdivision plat, map 171B, located on the north Highway 190 between squares 64 and 75 and squares 65 and 74 of Town of Alexisville subdivision, south of Covington, Ward 3, District 2. The applicant is Baldwin Motors, This is in Parish Council District Representative, Honorable David Fitzgerald. Staff?
The applicant is proposing to revoke an unopened portion of 7th Avenue. The petitioner desires to assimilate this property into the adjacent commercial properties. It should be noted that the Baldwin Motors owns both properties that abut the right-of-way. The staff has no objections.
Thank you. Mr. Morone?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Paul Marone on behalf of Mr. Baldwin and Baldwin Motors Incorporated. This particular stretch of 7th Street is on the, well, it's between the used car lot on Baldwin Motors and Highway 190 and the old restaurant that has been vacant for some time. Mr. Baldwin owns both of those parcels. In addition, if you look at the the revocation plat, the F Street right-of-way that you see there has already been revoked, as has the G Street right-of-way been revoked. The G Street right-of-way, I believe, was revoked maybe about 2 or 3 years ago, running all the way from behind Baldwin Motors to south beyond the Ace Hardware store. That entire stretch was revoked and was required by the various owners in that area. So this stretch of 7th Avenue has no utility. Mr. Baldwin owns property on all sides of it. It can't go further to the east, and so therefore we would respectfully request the revocation of it, wherein Mr. Baldwin would intend to acquire it after its appraisal from the parish and assimilate it into his adjacent parcels. I'll be happy to answer any questions that any of the commissioners might have regarding our request.
Thank you, Mr. Morone. Anyone in the audience wish to speak either for or against on this item? I'll close it to the public and bring it back to the commission.
I've got a question.
Okay?
Paul, could you come back? So you're saying, does he own square 65 and 74 also?
Yes, sir, he does.
Okay, so G Street, if you wanted to continue 7th Avenue across there and keep going to, I guess it'd be to Falconer eventually, huh?
Eventually, yes.
Okay, so that's still available to be done if this is left alone, is that correct?
No, because G Street is revoked.
So you can't even, if G Street's gone, you can't cross what was there?
Correct, correct.
Okay.
So there are a number of other rights-of-ways in there that have also been revoked over the years. So the area between, let's say that would be to the east of this, between the east side of these properties and Falconer Drive, all of those properties and squares are accessed via the other the north and south roadways that are in, not G Street, but as you move further, it would probably be probably H Street and beyond. So coming off of Harrison and then coming primarily off of Harrison on this stretch of Alexisville would be the primary access way for all of those squares. Most of those squares in that stretch are not all developed, but most have some development on them.
Okay, the concern was being, talking to staff earlier, it sounded like that's HC2 property back there behind there, if I'm not mistaken, from what I understood, and losing access to 190 seemed like that would be something you wouldn't want to do, but if they don't have it anyway, because of G Street, I don't know why we would have closed G Street right there at that intersection to not allow access for commercial property all the way to 190, but apparently if that's been done, it can't be changed? If that's revoked, that can never be open?
It's been acquired. And I think, my memory may not serve, I may be mistaken about this, but I am pretty sure that when any of these streets are revoked, one of the requirements is that you have to have notice and concurrence from all adjacent landowners. And when G Street was revoked, notice to the landowners to the east was given, and I believe I think that's Mr. Baldwin. I think Mr. Baldwin owns all of that land that is on the east side of G Street. And I say that because I'm thinking back to when that was revoked. But I know the owners were notified because that was a requirement, and there was no objection to it, and I'm pretty sure that it was because the petitioner was the owner at that time, Mr. Baldwin.
You understand the concern though about
Yes,
losing?
yes. No, I understand what you're saying,
I would hate to own one of those pieces of property
and
and
find out your only access way is just
coming off of Falconer
Yes.
or 9th Street or Harrison.
Right,
But you feel pretty confident that that's not the case?
correct. That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Nell?
I guess I have a question for staff. Does the parish receive funds for the area once it's revoked?
That's correct. Once it gets passed by the council, the applicant will actually pays a $600 fee, and the parish actually chooses an appraiser, and he goes out there and appraises it, and then based on that value, we'll work up a cash sale for that amount, so we do get the money from that.
Very good, thank you.
Okay, any further questions? Please vote.
I thought we had a motion in a second.
I didn't think we did.
Oh,
I'll make a motion to approve.
Pardon? Okay. Commissioner Fitzmaurice made the motion to approve, seconded by Commissioner Draw. I thought we did.
No, the first came as a question and the second came as a question.
Okay. All right, so you got a motion and a second now.
Mr. Russ?
Yes.
Ms. McGinnis?
Yes,
Mr. Fitzmaurice?
Yes.
Mr. Crawford?
Yes.
Mr. Drum?
Yes.
Mr. Barcelona?
Yes.
Mr. Richard?
Yes.
Mr. Doherty?
Yes,
Motion carried.
thank you. All right, minor subdivision review. 2020-1834-MSP, a minor subdivision, excuse me, of, a minor subdivision of a 2.066 acre tract and a 1.205 acre tract and a 0.861 acre tract. The owner is Pierce Commercial Laundry Distributors LLC, George B. Pierce. Surveyor is Randall Brown and Associates Incorporated. Parish Council District Representatives Honorable Riker Toledano. General location, the property located on the south side of Marshall Road, west of General Patton Boulevard, Mandeville, Ward 4, District 5. This was postponed from the special rescheduled April 14th meeting. Staff?
The applicant is requesting to create two parcels from a 2.066 acre parcel. Note that the proposed 0.861 acre tract meets the minimum lot size of 20,000 square feet and the minimum lot width of 80 feet required under the I-2 industrial zoning. The minor subdivision requests require a public hearing due to the 0.861 acre parcel requested to be created is less than 1 acre in size and requiring a waiver from the regulation by the Planning Commission, and the request shall also be subject to the comments below 1, 2, and 3.
Thank you.
Petition.
Mr. George Pierce? Good evening.
Good evening. How are you? Are there questions?
Just tell us what you're wanting to do with this
Yeah.
re-subdivision.
Okay. Yeah, I'm George Pearson. I bought the 2 acres 15 years ago. I built the building on just over an acre 10 years ago. Had the bank release part of it just recently, and have been approached by some neighbors near about buying part of that property, and that was the reason to subdivide it.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Okay.
Anyone else in the audience wish to speak either for or against on this item? I'll close it to the public and bring it back to the commission. We need the motion.
Make a motion to approve?
Motion by Commissioner
Second.
Barcelona to approve, seconded by Commissioner Fitzmaurice. Any further discussion? Please vote.
Mr. Russ?
Yes.
Ms. McGinnis?
Yes.
Mr. Fitzmaurice?
Yes.
Mr. Crawford?
Yes.
Mr. Drum?
Yes.
Mr. Barcelona?
Yes.
Mr. Richard?
Yes.
Mr. Doherty?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Do we need to, say that it needed a waiver, or is that part of passing?
It should have been part of the motion.
It would be part of the motion. If the motion was made without clarification, it's part of the motion.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right, 2020-1895-MSP, a minor subdivision of 14.144 acres in the parcels B1 and B2. Owner and representative is Miss Peggy G. Brewster. Surveyor is John G. Cummings and Associate. Parish Council District Representatives, Honorable Marty Dean. General location, the property is located on the south side of Louisiana 1085, west of Red Fox Run, Madisonville, Ward 1, District 1. Staff?
The applicant is requesting to create two parcels from a 14.144 acre parcel. Note that the proposed parcels B1 and B2 meet the maximum allowable density of 1 unit per acre. The minor subdivision request requires a public hearing due to parcel A and B requested to be created do not meet the minimum lot width of 150 feet required under the A2 suburban zoning, and parcel B was part of a prior minor subdivision approved in September 2009. The request shall be subject to the below comments number 1 and number 2.
Thank you. Miss Peggy Brewster?
Yes, sir.
Yes, ma'am. I've got a card from you, and you're gonna be able to tell us what you're gonna do, right?
I guess so. My mother gave me a piece of property that has been approved for a minor subdivision in 2014, and I just want to split it right now and give it to my children.
Okay,
So it's kind of like a reapproval.
all right. All right, anyone else in the audience wish to speak for or against on this item? I'll close it to the public and bring it back to the commission.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
I have
sir.
a question. Ms. Brewster, just a quick question. The two pieces that say not apart, are those lots that are owned by somebody now?
Yes, yes.
Do they have any buildings on them?
They have houses on them.
They have houses on them, okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Okay,
No more questions.
any of the commissioners have any other questions? I had one, the lateral on the north side to cross to access the back part of B1.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I've got it written down, a lateral on the north side of, to cross to access the back part of B1. And I'm not real sure what my notes mean right now.
I'm not following you either. I don't know.
Is it the creek? Creek?
There's a creek in the back, yes. It goes on both pieces of property.
Okay, that's probably what I was looking at is,
It's gonna be in flood zone, well, one of them's in flood zone A. The back.
okay. And it's gonna be up to y'all to do whatever you want to as far as accessing
Yes, sir.
the back
Okay.
part of it. Okay. All right.
Make a
Need
motion to approve.
Motion by
Motion to
Commissioner
approve.
Crawford,
Second.
second by Commissioner Fitzmaurice. Any further discussion?
Subject to the waivers.
That's
Yes.
with the waivers.
With the waivers, yes. Please vote.
Mr. Rest?
Yes.
Ms. McGinnis?
Yes.
Mr. Fitzmaurice?
Yes.
Mr. Crawford?
Yes.
Mr. Drum?
Yes.
Mr. Barcelona?
Yes.
Mr. Richard?
Yes.
Mr. Doherty?
Yes.
Motion carried.
All right. Next item is 2020-1897-MSP, a minor subdivision of 22.16 acres into parcels A1, B1, and C. Owner representative, Mr. Stephen K. and Inez B. Jenkins, and Michael and Angela Williams. Surveyor is John G. Cummings and Associates. Honorable Richard Tanner was the representative. This property is located on the south side of Coward Road, west of Sticker Road, Bush, Ward 5, District 6. Staff?
The applicant is requesting to create 3 parcels from a 22.16 acre parcel. Note that the proposed parcel A-1, B-1, and C meet the maximum allowable density of 1 unit under the A2 suburban zoning district. The minor subdivision request requires a public hearing due to parcel C requested to be created does not meet the minimum lot frontage of 150 feet required under the A2 suburban and requiring a waiver by the planning commission. The request shall be subject to the comment number 1 here listed.
Thank you. Are any of the owners? Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, my name is Carla McDaniel, and I am the sister of Stephen and cousin of Michael. And what it is we're dividing into 3 parcels because I'm buying the middle parcel, which is C, that is my grandfather's house and 1.1 acres from them. So, you know, they said it wasn't 150 foot wide at road frontage, so I had to come and get a waiver.
Okay.
Okay?
All right, anything else?
Yeah, I just have a question. Is it 150 foot just road frontage, or does it have to go 150 foot width all the way back?
Staff?
It should be all the way back. But
It should be, but does it have to be?
But a lot is considered, you know, the width is considered from front to back, according to the definition of what a lot is.
I mean, but they're not all lots are consistent with that.
What is, you're asking for a waiver of the creation of this lot, so.
Right. And if this lot didn't go 150 foot all the way back, would it have been approved? If it would have had the 150 foot road frontage?
I guess I would have had to look at the ordinance to confirm, but to my knowledge, the definition of a lot, it clearly states that it's supposed to keep the minimum lot width from front to back.
What it is there's a brand new board fence up, and we don't want to move the fence. We would have given the 150 foot road frontage if we wouldn't have had to go all the way down and move the fences. So, that's it.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else in the audience wish to speak for or against on this item? I'll close it to the public and bring it back to the commission.
I've got a question for the petitioner. You say this is family, it's gonna be on both sides of you?
Yes.
Is there any reason, so if you didn't want to move the fence, doesn't mean the property line can't be beyond the fence?
The property line actually goes 5 foot on the other side of the fence. I didn't want to move the fence I don't care about 5 foot, so I'm not moving it.
But what if,
And,
I'm just, I mean, since you're dividing it up, to meet the 150 foot, seems like you don't have to move the fence at all if you don't want, you just have
Well,
property
if
on the
you,
other side of the
the
fence.
difference is when you look at the property, it drops off back and it becomes a flood zone A. So if we widened it, and the house sits way back off the road. So if we widen it to the 150 foot all the way down, it puts the backyard right behind the house. Where now the backyard is
Okay.
actually fenced and further back.
If you didn't increase the total acreage, is what you're saying.
Right,
But if
right.
you kept your present depth of the property and just widened the property.
Yeah, it would increase the acreage, and
Right.
they didn't want to do that. They really didn't want to give up that much more land.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right. I need a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve with the waiver.
Motion by Commissioner Barcelona to approve with the waiver.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Fitzmaurice. Any further discussion? Please vote.
Mr. Russ? Mr. Russ?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. Ms. McGinnis?
Yes.
Mr. Fitzmaurice?
Yes.
Mr. Crawford?
Yes.
Mr. Drum? Mr. Barcelona?
Yes.
Mr. Richard?
Yes.
Mr. Doherty?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. All right, re-subdivision review. 2020-1921-MRP, re-subdivision of lots 8, 9, 10, into lots 8A, 10A, and in addition to a future access servitude, Fairview Oaks Business Park. The owner is Favre Investments LLC. Mr. Uncas B. Favre Jr., Representatives Paul J. Marone, Surveyors Kelly J. McHugh and Associates. Parish Council District Representative is Honorable Michael Loreno Jr. General location, property located on the north and east sides of Fairview Oaks Drive on the south side of Louisiana 22, Madisonville, Louisiana, Ward 4, District 4. Staff?
The owner is requesting to re-subdivide lots 8, 9, and 10 into lots 8A, 10A, and add to a future access servitude. The reason for the public hearing requirement are that the proposal involves the creation or the adjustment of lots within a subdivision that requires approval by the Planning Commission, and the addition to a future access servitude. The request shall be subject to the above and below comments listed, number 1 and number 2.
Thank you. Mr. Marone?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Paul Marone on behalf of Mr. Favre and Fairview Oaks Business Park, or Fairview Oaks LLC. As you'll see from the resub plat, we're proposing to combine lots 9 and 10, which is the primary focus of the request, and we did modify the lot line on lot 8 to accomplish an additional parking space. We've been working with staff on the parking space number 23, which is noted in the comments. We have some revisions to exactly where that would be located within Lot A, so we will be able to accommodate the request in the comments. The primary reason for the combining of lots 9 and 10 is that we wanted to create a larger usable area. As these lots fall back, they get into some wetlands, some fairly significant wetlands that need to be maintained and preserved. And so we had Lot 10 originally created there as an out parcel, but it really didn't make much sense because of the wetlands areas and the mitigation that would have to take place. So by combining these lots, we give a larger upland buildable area, and we think it works better for all involved. We would respectfully request your approval, subject to the staff comments, all of which we will comply with. I'll be happy to answer any questions that the commissioner might have.
Thank you, Mr. Marone. Anyone in the audience wish to speak for or against on this item? I will close it to the public and bring it back to the commission.
I make a motion to approve with the waiver.
Motion by Commissioner Fitzmaurice to approve, second by Commissioner Crawford. Any further discussion? Please vote.
Mr. Russ?
Yes.
Ms. McGinnis?
Yes.
Mr. Fitzmaurice?
Yes.
Mr. Crawford?
Yes.
Mr. Drum?
Yes.
Mr. Barcelona?
Yes.
Mr. Richard?
Yes.
Mr. Doherty?
Yes, and that was with the waivers, correct?
Yes, sir.
Correct.
Thank you.
Motion carried.
Thank you. All right, the next three items were postponed. Dormant subdivision review, we have none. Tentative subdivision review, we have none. Preliminary subdivision review, we have none. Final subdivision review, we have none. Amendments to Chapter 125 subdivision regulations, we have none. Amendment to developmental agreements, we have none. And old business, we have one. Tribute at Tammany Developer, this is case 2020-1808-PP. Tribute at Tammany, developer owners D.R. Horton Incorporated, Gulf Coast. Engineer surveyors, Atlantis Design Group, PC. Parish Council District Representative, the Honorable Steve Stefancic. Property located on the east side of Louisiana 434 and north of I-12, Lacombe, Ward 7, District 11. Developers requesting a waiver to Chapter 125-14, driveways on corner lots shall not be any closer than 60 feet from the corner of said property, closest to the intersection as measured from the property line on the corner of the property where the said two street rights-of-way intersect for lot 350. Staff?
Yes, sir. Developers requesting to reduce the distance between the right-of-way intersection and driveway from 60 feet to approximately 50 feet for lot 350. It still allows for a 60-foot clearance between the driveway and the back of curb, and staff has no objection.
Thank you. Mr. Morone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Paul Morone again. As Mr. Tissue just said, it's a standard request. I know that you all see a lot of these. The driveway distance to the curb. We do maintain 60 feet to the curb itself with the driveway placement, and from the right-of-way line, we're about 50 feet, so we're about 10 feet short of the requirement. We did try to side load or J-load this lot to be able to avoid requesting the waiver, but we weren't able to configure it such given the layout of the lot. So we would ask for your consideration this evening of the waiver of the 10 feet of the location of the driveway from the corner.
Thank you, Mr. Morone. Anyone in the audience wish to speak for or against on this item? I'll close it to the public and bring it back to the commission. Anyone wish to make a motion?
I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion to approve.
I have a question.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Richard to approve,
Second,
second by,
me, Fitzmaurice, and Drum has a question.
okay, thank you.
You know, with Mr. Horton here, a lot of the subdivisions that come in for, requests that come from him are always about a waiver on a corner lot. Do you foresee any more happening at this particular subdivision, or, I mean, there seems to be a habit?
It happens a lot, particularly with PUD layouts, where you have smaller lots that are at or less than 60 feet in width. That by its very nature creates a conflict with this particular provision in the code. So I would tell you that as long as the code remains as written, this probably will be an issue. I know that there is an effort to relook at some of the provisions in the code and perhaps rewrite some of it. When we went through this exercise some years ago, this was a provision that needed to be looked at because I'm not sure where it started, and it probably has a good application in a number of developments, but where you have 60-foot lots or less, it creates an immediate conflict. Where we can J-load some of those or side load, then we don't have to request that. But it does set up a conflict all the time, which is why, unfortunately, you all are tasked with entertaining so many of these waivers. My hope is that when the code is re-examined, that this provision will be re-examined as it pertains to these type of layouts. Because I think there are ways to accomplish safety without the 60 feet, and I think this is a good example of that. But right now, the staff has a provision in the ordinance, and the only relief we have really is to come to you and ask for a waiver, unfortunately.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Morone.
I got something for Paul. Hey, Paul, something else to consider here, and you know this is one of my favorite things, but I'm kind of trying to move on. I noticed you were giving me the eye, you know. So, and tonight you're really subject to me pretty bad tonight. So
I understand.
But one thing you might pass on to the developer, I mean, Another option is to use this lot space for something different, like recreational space or green space that they're required to provide anyway. Instead of it always having to be a buildable lot, there are other options that they may consider. And if we start turning some of these down, I'm sure they will start to consider that. But I mean, I just think there are other options other than rewriting the code, unless we find the code itself is just faulty. But we haven't done that yet.
Right.
But I would say, I'm with Mr. Drum, every week or every month we see the same thing, and I still believe there are other options other than that's all we can do. I realize you're the messenger, but try to return the message the other way and say that, you know.
I understand what you're saying, and it's a good suggestion. Our engineer's here, he's heard our exchange, and so we'll certainly take that back to the folks with Horton and consider that as we lay these future phases out.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. That's all right. We have a motion and a second to approve. Any further discussion? Please vote.
Mr. Russ?
Yes, Mr. Waiver.
Ms. McGinnis?
Yes.
Mr. Fitzmaurice?
Yes.
Mr. Crawford?
Yes.
Mr. Drum?
Yes.
Mr. Barcelona?
Yes.
Mr. Richard?
Yes.
Mr. Doherty?
Yes,
Motion carried.
thank you. Well, let's see, we don't have any new business, but we have an adjournment.
So moved.
Thank you. Hey, Chris,